Welcome, Wapham crew, new listeners, guys, gals, ghouls, and anyone beyond the omniverse that may be listening this evening. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, March 19th, Sunday, March 20th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I'm broadcasting live tonight from the Mile High Clubhouse. I'm so grateful that you could join us this evening, and I hope you've had an epic weekend so far. I've had a pretty good one. Of course, I stay up too late on the weekends, hanging out with my peeps. But hey, everything's been going good, and spring is just around the corner. For those of you across the pond, it is spring already. For us, we're still waiting for tomorrow. Maybe later it'll be spring, but it's been getting warmer. You can actually see the grass, and it's amazing. I can't wait. The robins are out. Other birds are arriving. Pretty soon there will be butterflies. My daughter just told me earlier she was attacked by a big-ass wolf spider. So that was exciting. So if you're listening to us live right now, you may be listening to us on KPNL Radio. You may also find us live on eTalk Radio, which you can find on etalk.tv/radio. You can also find us live right now on Facebook, Twitch. Where's the other one? I believe it's YouTube. And if you want to listen to us in your free time, whether you're working it, or working out, check us out under We Are Paradox Media at Spreaker, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Facebook, of course, Castbox, Tumblr, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and Podvine. As I said before, we're still working on that Amazon, but we'll get there someday. We'll see what happens. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the news recently. Supposedly there's an arrest warrant out for Putin for abducting children. Thousands of children have been taken from Ukraine and taken to Russia. Unfortunately, a lot of their parents are dead, but a lot of the parents aren't. And so, you know, they're trying to get these kids back, trying to hold Putin, accountable for it, and trying to make all this dastardly shit better, but you never know. And then, of course, I'm sure you guys have heard about the drone that they not only sprayed jet fuel on, but they forced it into the Black Sea. Freaking ridiculous, all this shit they're doing. And I think they're just trying to antagonize, trying to make shit worse. But who knows? I don't know. Putin's crazy. We need spy versus spy or something going on. We need somebody to get in there and do something. Get rid of this a-hole. Go ahead and leave me any comments, whether good or bad, over here in Spreaker. You can also do it on Facebook. Let me go over there really quick. Put my bookmarker back in. I'm all antsy to get reading this book once more. I was just listening to H3, the H3 podcast. That guy is so funny. I watched their St. Patrick's Day one, and that was just freaking hilarious. Ethan, you're quite the guy. Here, let me see if I could find this real quick, I don't want to leave you guys waiting, but let's scroll up here, see what the crack are we looking at. Here we go, 5 comments. Let me turn this down. Yes, Spotify. Let me double check. No, I don't think I am on Spotify. Thanks for the pointer there. Yeah, I am on Spotify. Damn it, Robert. Quit confusing me. Hey, big brother. I love your face. I hope you and your lovely old lady are doing good. No, she ain't old. She's gorgeous. Okay, I'm here today. Yay, Robert. I know, I saw your post earlier where you're like, I took a break from Facebook and stuff. You know, had a nap, took out the trash, cleaned out the fridge, all this other stuff, caught up on some sleep. Good boy. What the good boy Robert is. His mom's so lucky. Doing it. I love you, Greg. I miss you, and I hope to see you soon. Yeah, but you question, like, Spotify. I'm like, yes, I'm on Spotify. Amazon's the one I'm working on, and if you guys have any more pointers, like different places that I could take this where you listen regularly, let me know. Greg, did you hear about the family reunion in Arkansas? It's coming up this next month. I think, yeah, that's like right before I go on my cruise to Mexico, and I'm kind of weirded out about it because my friend Anthony, oh God, he keeps sending me these articles about women that have gone missing, that have been abducted, etc. And just recently, he sent me one last night that said 6 of these females that were taken were not only taken, but they found their bodies burned. Yes, I did mention Spotify. Thanks, Robert, for pointing that out. But anywho, so tonight we're going to do story time with me. And of course, the third hour, we always wrap it up with some Reddit ghost stories. We did do the Mandela effect for a little bit, and some of that was interesting. But at the same time, like, I don't know. You know, people talking about stuff that didn't really make sense. Is that really a Mandela effect? I'm not sure, but glad to see you in here, Robert. We missed you last night on the after party, and we actually had Truzado, who is generally on Twitch. He came into the after party. That was fun. Oh, yeah, Jeff is saying, and thanks again for downloading your shows. Well, somehow I figured out the system, and I don't have to do it. Like, it automatically does it for me. Like, I wish I could do that on everything. Hey, will you automatically do this? Will you automatically do that? Well, I don't know. So, I'm going to turn on The Creeper. I actually have a note of who that's by, but I got these different songs from, like, a soundbite system, and I paid for months of it, but I did a massive download the first month, didn't do it anymore, and so I have a shitload of tunes. That reminds me, so my friend Richard got a hold of me, and he worked the film festival, and he's like, hey, you should really come check this out, and I really wanted to, but at the same time, I've just been working my ass off, so caretaking on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, unless there's an appointment on other days, and then door dashing in between, just to make some money, and yes, I did get my taxes, but, man, where'd everybody go? Hold on, let me go back over here. But yeah, it's like kind of addicting, like doing the door dashing, because you're cruising around, you're seeing different places, and I talked, oh, hey, Truzado. It's okay. Oh, so how does it sound tonight, Truzado? I tried to do a little tweaking on the system to see what was working, what was not, so let me know how it sounds, if it sounds better than last night. I'm just glad the fan on my computer went off, because earlier it was on, and I was like asking my friend, how do I get rid of this fan noise on my thing? Let me say no worries to Jeff. And then, oh yeah, Davy Joe. Please make sure you turn off your Wi-Fi. Yeah, CenturyLink, I call it Century Stink because it really does stink. It's like, what are you guys doing? But yeah, I'm packing on. For some reason, my little light is not working. So, yeah, you can really see the luggage. Use your gate more, bring it up to about 4.5 or... that's what I did, Dave Cruz. So use your gate more, bring it up to 4.5 or 5, but speak more closer to the mic so you don't sound cut off. Am I sounding cut off? Truzado said it sounds good. And I am listening to my brother. And he's telling me good things, so yeah. I did turn on the thing, what the fuck is it called? Let me look at my banana meter really quick. Yes, the gate. I did turn that up to 5 before Dave even told me anything, because I'm like, oh, I remember that being like, it'll cancel out background noises. So I'm like, here, let me try this. But luckily, my fan is not kicked on. But it was kicked on earlier, so... Thank you, Truzido. Thank you, Dave Cruz. Thank you, Jeff Rinnell. Thank you, everyone that helps and supports me. There was one week where it was insane. And I was like, Dave, like, I don't know what to do. I'm ready to throw in the towel as far as e-talk goes, because this banana meter is making me bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. But yeah, I think I have it figured out. I think I got this. I don't know. So the book we've been reading is Death, A History of Man's Obsessions and Fears. And it's been pretty interesting. Pretty gross at times. It's like, what the crack was that? So this one, here, let me turn up this light a little bit. I can't see. The Bog People. I've never heard of them. Let me make sure I sent that to Davy Joe. Hey, please turn off the Wi-Fi. Oh shit, I don't think I did send it. Wi-Fi off, because Century Stink sucks. I'm really considering doing the Starlink, especially since a couple years ago, like, I really keep my eyes out for UFOs and such, and we just got home and I saw this train of lights just going past, and I was like, what was that? And then I looked it up on the internet. I was like, is there like satellites or something going over my home? And it said it was Starlink. Pretty interesting. So, the Bog People. The most perfect examples of bodily preservation must surely be the Bog People of Northern Europe. These people, most dying around the time of Christ, have been remarkably preserved. Oh no. Drama for your mama coming through. Anywho's. And the unique chemical conditions found in peat bogs. The most famous of the Bog People were uncovered in Denmark in the years following the Second World War. 3 in Boramos, Tollundman, and Grabelman. So well preserved is Tollundman that his facial expression makes him appear nearly asleep. His serenity belies the fact that a rope is tied tightly around his neck and was obviously the cause of his death. He was found naked apart from a cap, lying on his side, his knees flecked upon his abdomen. Grabelman had also met with a violent end. His throat was cut so deeply that the laceration had severed the gullet. Most experts believe that the bog bodies represent human sacrifices to the fertility goddess Eartha. Well, that's messed up. The most poignant sacrifice was uncovered in Schleswig in 1952, when workmen noticed a foot and a hand rolling off a peat conveyor belt. It proved to be the upper part of the body of a girl of about 14. She had lain naked with a bandage over her eyes and a collar around her neck. Experts believe that she had been led blindfold to her death and drowned, weighted down in the water by a large stone placed over her. A British bogman was discovered by workmen in a peat deposit in Cheshire in 1984. Lindau Man, or Peat Marsh, as he was irreverently christened by the British press, was dated using radiocarbon techniques to about 300 BC. As investigations by experts continued, it became clear that the unfortunate man had been simultaneously hit on the head and garroted, probably as part of a ritualized killing. A year earlier, in 1983, the skull of a woman had been dug up in the same vicinity. The find comprised an incomplete skull with some hair and a left eyeball intact. Living near Lindau, Moss, at the time, was Peter Rain Bart, whose wife had disappeared more than 20 years before. When the local police told Rain Bart of the discovery of a skull, he promptly confessed to his wife's murder and was duly tried and convicted. The hapless husband would have been well advised to remain silent, since Lindau woman was subsequently dated at Oxford University to 210 AD, give or take about 80 years. So, yeah, this guy went beyond his means to confess to the murder when he really didn't have to. But hey, there you go. Karma's a bitch, but I love her for it. From its heyday in ancient Egypt until its renaissance in modern America, the art of embalming went into decline, though it was never totally abandoned. In ancient Babylon, embalming was accomplished by immersing in honey, and it is said that the body of Alexander the Great was treated in this fashion. That's a lot better than like hot resin or, things that they did in Egypt. So fucking creepy. The thing like the hook going in your nose and washing out your brains, like that's insane to me. The tale is told of 12th century visitors to Giza, who happened to cross a sealed jar containing honey, which they proceeded to dip into and enjoy. But their appetites precipitously diminished when one of them scooped out a handful of hair. Ew. On emptying the jar, they were horrified to find the corpse of a small child, fully clothed, bejeweled, and in a remarkable state of preservation. Oh. My friend's getting a hold of me about a UFO group. I'm totally down. Joe said your thing about the internet. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty gross. There's a kid in there. No, let's not do that. The 9th century emperor, Charlemagne, was embalmed, as were many members of English royalty, including Canute and Henry I. Henry died in Lyons-le-Fort, near Rouen, in 1135. His entrails, brain, and eyes were buried in France, and the body was embalmed for shipment to Reading Abbey. Such was the advanced state of decomposition. Sorry, my friend Richard keeps texting me. Of the king's corpse that the surgeon assigned to do the embalming died of infection, the last of many whom Henry destroyed. The body was sewn in a bull's hide and carried to Caen. Despite the coldness of winter, the corpse deteriorated further, prompting one mourner to observe, "Note the vileness of human flesh. It gives cause for humility." In contrast, when Edward I died in 1307, the body was so expertly embalmed that when his tomb was opened 500 years later, the king was found in an excellent state of preservation. Catherine de Valois, widow of King Henry V, was embalmed in 1437. When her grandson, King Henry VII, pulled down the chapel in which she was buried, he kept the preserved body above ground in an open coffin, and so she remained for 200 years. In 1669, the diarist Samuel Pepys saw, by particular favor, the body of Queen Catherine of Valois, and had her upper part of her body in my hands, and I did kiss her mouth. Gross. What's wrong with this guy? Preservation and pickling solutions. Damn it, Richard! Quit texting me! Yeah, COVID really fucked up our world, didn't it? Anyways, yeah, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, you gonna kiss a dead body? I think we read about that last chapter. And it's known as, what was it? I can't even remember. You know, sleeping with dead people or loving on dead people, really gross. Preservation and pickling solutions was occasionally resorted to during alterations to Dunbury Church in 1779. The village doctor came across the grave of Sir Gerard de Braybroke, who died in 1422. The elm coffin and inner lead shell were opened to reveal a tolerably preserved corpse lying in an aromatic fluid which the doctor proclaimed, after tasting, resembled Spanish olives and mushroom ketchup. What the heck is wrong with people? Ugh. Nelson, after his death at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, was delivered back to Britain, immersed in a barrel of brandy. Some years earlier, Suzanne Kirchard, wife of Jacques Necker, minister to Louis XVI, left instructions that her body was to be preserved in a huge tank of alcohol within a mausoleum, to be built on their estate in the shore of Lake Geneva. Her daughter wrote, "Perhaps you do not know that my mother gave orders so singular and extraordinary that she believed the features of her face would be so perfectly preserved that my poor father would spend the rest of his life looking at her." When the mausoleum was opened in 1804 to receive the body of her daughter, Necker and his wife were found in a black marble basin, still half filled with alcohol. Necker's face was perfectly preserved, but his wife's head had fallen off. So this is the Grobel man found in 1952, his cut throat, leaving us in no doubt as to the cause of death. Some 1,500 years ago. Ew. Ew. Embalming, an English eccentricity. It will probably never be known with certainty just how Hannah Beswick came to end up as a mummy, but a mummy she indeed became. And it was more than 100 years after her death before she was finally laid underground. Miss Beswick was born in 1688 into a rich Manchester family. For many years before her death in 1758, she was a patient of Charles White, a distinguished local surgeon with an interest in anatomy. The reason many have pondered or have given for her embalming was her terror of being buried alive. Though many layers of resinous bandages, no request for embalming appeared in Miss Beswick's will, and many contemporaries were unjustly suspicious of White's motives, inferring that he had embalmed the spinster for monetary gain. It was rumored that she had instructed him to arrange her funeral, any change out of £400 to be kept by the surgeon. White's enemies suggested that he had embalmed the body in order to pocket all of the money. In fact, he received £100 as his fee for medical and executor services. For whatever reason, Hannah Beswick was embalmed, and White kept the mummy in his possession until his own death in 1813. That is so weird, and I just remembered the word necrophiliac. Like, what's wrong with those people? He might be like something like that, like a necrophiliac. Long time no see, Harlan. Oh no. Yeah, there's been a lot of hacking going on. Like, there's a lot of jerks out there pulling a lot of shit. Well, I am. Aw, blessings and love, Harlan. Yeah, I'm glad you got a new account. Hackers suck, seriously. Like, don't people have something better to do with their time? Anywho's. But yeah, necrophilia. It reminds me of a Dr. Hook song. Anywho's, have you guys heard that? Freaking Out the Freaker's Ball? It's a pretty good one. If you haven't heard it, you should look it up on YouTube and listen to it, because it's funny. because there's necrophiliacs looking for dead ones. And yeah, I'm glad I finally remembered the name for that. But yeah, I'm glad you're doing good. And that's such a cute puppy dog. What is that? Is that is that like a pit bull, or is that a bulldog? I can't tell, Harlan. Let me know. So for whatever reason, Hannah Beswick was embalmed. Okay, I already read that. He kept the mummy in his possession until his own death in 1813. Like, that guy is disgusting. Dead women, dead men, they tell no secrets. Thomas de Quincey, in his autobiography, recounts that as a child in Manchester, he was taken to see Charles White's Museum of Anatomical Specimens, and that the mummy had been placed in a common English clock case, having the usual glass face, but a veil of white velvet obscured from all profane eyes the silent features behind. After White died, his anatomical collection, including Hannah Beswick, was given to the Manchester Natural History Museum. When the museum closed its doors in 1868, Hannah Beswick was finally buried without stone or tablet to indicate the spot. I think she was perversed upon, enough. She didn't need any more. Hey, Jen, what's up, girl? How you doing? Yeah, poor Hannah, man. I feel bad for that chick. What did that doctor do to her? I don't know. It's weird. Why would he keep her body? It's freaking me out. I don't want to think about it anymore. Anywho's. It is not known whether Miss Van Butchel was eccentric or not, but her husband most decidedly was unhinged. Martin Van Butchel was a dentist and a truce maker who had once been a pupil of John Hunter, the brilliant surgeon who melted down O'Brien, the luckless Irish giant. I hope you're not talking about my falls, yeah? In 1775, Van Butchel's first wife died when she was only 36 years old. It is unclear why she was embalmed. Some say that the widower loved her too much and was loath to bury her. Others invoked a clause in the marriage settlement to the effect that Martin Van Butchel could dispose of some property in any way he saw fit, always provided his wife remained above ground. The first explanation would seem to be more credible according to the sentiments of the lady's epitaph. Epitaph on Mrs. Van Butchel, whose remains, preserved by a curious and newly invented method of embalmment, are the object of her fond husband's daily attention. Here, unentombed, Van Butchel's comfort lies, to feed a husband's grief or charm his eyes. Taintless and pure her body still remains, and all its former elegance retains. Long had disease been preying on her charms, till slow she shrunk in death's expecting arms. When Hunter's skill, in spite of nature's laws, her beauties rescued from corruption's jaws, Babe, the pale roses of her cheeks revive, and her shrunk features seem again to live. Hunter, who first conceived the happy thought, and here at length to full perfection brought, O, lucky husband, blessed of heaven, to thee the privilege is given, a much-loved wife at home to keep, caress, touch, talk to, even sleep. Close by her side whene'er you will, as quite as if living still. And strange to tell, that fairer she, and sweeter than alive should be, firm, plump, and juicy as before, and full as tractable or more. Thrice happy mortal, envied lot, what rare a treasure thou hast got! Who to a woman canst lay claim, whose tempter's every day the same? The Hunter, referred to in the sexist McGonagall lines, is not John, but his elder brother William, who had invented a method of embalming in order to preserve his surgical specimens. This process consisted of 3 stages. First, the injection of turpentine. Seriously, my granny would use that to get rid of frickin' ticks. Ticks hate turpentine. They really hate it. So freaking gross. So, an injection of turpentine and vermilion to fill the arteries and veins. Second, the removal of the organs in the chest and abdomen and emptying of the bladder and rectum. Third, the injection of viscera, where then replaced in the body, and the cavities packed with a mixture of camphor, nitrate, and resin. After sewing, washing, and drying, the body was rubbed with fragrant oils and placed in a box half filled with plaster of Paris to absorb excess moisture. Hunter recommended that the process should not be hurried and that it should cost no less than 100 guineas. From a document written by Van Butchel, it would appear that he entered into the embalming personally and with gusto. He was super excited about it, okay? From a document written by Van Butchel on the 14th of January, 1775. At 2:30 this morning, my wife died. At 2:30 this afternoon, Mr. Cruikshanks injected at the crural arteries 5 pints of oil of turpentine mixed with Venice turpentine and vermilion. Okay. 15th, Dr. Hunter and Mr. Cruikshanks began to open and embalm the body of my wife. Her diseases were a large emphysema with pleuropneumonia or pneumonia. Pleuropneumonia. 17th, I opened the abdomen to put in the remainder of powders. 18th, Dr. Hunter and Mr. Cruikshanks came and put my wife into a box on and in 130 pounds of Paris plaster at 18 pence a bag. I put between the thighs 3 arquebusade bottles, 1 full of camphorated spirits, very rich, of the gum, 1 containing 8 ounces of oil of rosemary, and in the other 2 ounces of olive oil of lavender. 11th February. I unluted the glasses to clean the face and legs with spirits of wine and oil of lavender. A great deal of interest and curiosity was generated by the embalming, and a stream of visitors presented themselves at Van Butchel's house in order to view his late spouse. So great was the demand that he had to publish a notice in the St. James Chronicle on the 21st of October, 1775. Van Butchel, not willing to be unpleasantly circumstanced and wished to convince some good minds they have been misinformed, acquaints the curious, no stranger can see his embalmed wife unless by a friend personally introduced to himself any day between 9 and 1. Sundays expected. Hey, Jamie. The first, Mrs. Van Butchel, shared her home with her husband's second wife. On the death of Martin Van Butchel in 1814, his son offered the embalmed body to the Royal College of Surgeons. The generous gift was accepted. In 1857, a visitor to the college commented thus on a certain exhibit. No doubt extraordinary pains were taken to preserve both form and feature, and yet, what a wretched mockery of once lovely woman it now appears, with its sunken and rotten-looked bust, its hideous mahogany-colored face, and its remarkably fine set of teeth. Between the feet are the remains of a green parrot, whether immolated or not, at the death of its mistress is uncertain. But as it still retains its plumage, it is a far less repulsive object than the larger biped. So I guess they didn't do a really good job on that, eh? I don't know. So good to see you, Jamie. I haven't seen you in forever. Are you still in Cortez? Like, if so, like, when I get back down there, I'll let you know, and hopefully we can meet up and have lunch or something. Maybe we can, like, do face masks or some cool girly stuff. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the body is no longer on show. It was finally cremated in 1941 when a German bomb landed on the college during the Second World War. Yes, I'm totally up for that. I'm totally down. Let's do it, sister. Let's do it. It's been too long, seriously. Like, how many years? I'm gonna say, like, 20 plus? I don't know, that's what it feels like. Anywho's, John Sheldon gained his diploma in surgery in 1775 and joined the staff of Lock Hospital. Miss Johnson, one of his patients was a beautiful woman of 24 who was dying of tuberculosis. She asked Sheldon to embalm her when she died. One can only speculate on his motives, but Sheldon, after embalming the dead woman, took the body to his home and placed it in his bedroom. See, I'm telling you, these necrophiliacs are freaking crazy. Ugh, so gross. Like, what the fuck? Like, were these guys so dire? Like, I know there's a lot of desperate guys, but back in this day, like, seriously, you gotta... This is like the second dead woman we've heard about, and I've read about a lot of doctors, like, doing this. Ew, gross. Like, did they have breakfast and dinner and lunch together? Like, I don't know. What is going on here? Anyways. Laid out on a bed under glass is where she remained. A visitor from France was asked to admire the fine brown hair and to feel the flexibility of the arms and the elasticity of the bosom. Okay. As Sheldon had used spirits of wine and had tanned the skin with finely powdered alum. Much camphor was used, as Sheldon's widow was to attest to when she offered the body to the College of Surgeons. I recollect putting a little favorite bird in the room in which the case stood that contained the body. In the morn that bird was found dead, which Mr. Sheldon attributed to the smell of the camphor. Alas, Miss Johnson fared no better than Mrs. Van Buchel. In 1899, a writer in the British Medical Journal commented that Sheldon's mummy no longer had any semblance of life, but was shrunken and hard as a board, and the skin of the arms, neck, and chest quite white, but the face, where apparently the color injected had remained. A dull red, all the more ghastly for its color, and the long brown hair is beautiful no more. So much for Sheldon's optimism that the bosom would retain its elasticity for centuries. How long are you gonna play with those boobies, huh? What's up, Sheldon? What you doing? Jimmy Garlic. Jimmy Garlic is one of the rare examples of natural mummification that can be seen in Britain. In 1839, during excavation work being carried out in St. James Garlickheath in the city of London, the calcified body of a young man was found buried near the altar. Nothing is known about him except that he is at least 300 years old. He is known affectionately as Jimmy Garlic, and presently stands in an upright box in the snug warmth of the boiler room in the basement of the church. He shows no signs of having been embalmed. Plans are far advanced to provide a permanent place in the body of the church to exhibit this unusual relic. So here it says, the body of a young man who lived 300 years ago discovered in 1839 near the altar of St. James Garlickheath, London, and affectionately known as Jimmy Garlic. At present, he resides snug and warm in the boiler room of the church, but plans are in hand to move him to a more dignified resting place. So, here's the picture of that. Isn't that creepy? I'm like, why do they keep the eyes open? It's so freaking weird. With heart and head. So, the ancient Egyptians regarded the heart as the most important organ of the body and took special care to leave it embalmed within the chest cavity. The advent of Christianity saw the decline of embalming, since resurrection of the body in no way depended on its state of preservation. I also believe, people worry about being cremated, but I think if you're meant to come back, you will. And it doesn't matter if you're cremated or what have you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Dead Christians were to be committed to the ground, happy in the knowledge that their chances of eternal life would depend only on the quality of their earthly existence, and not upon the quality of their corpse. Tampering with the dead was officially frowned upon, and in 1299, Pope Boniface VIII was moved to issue a vigorous edict prohibiting any dismemberment of the dead on pain of excommunication. Despite such papal threats, the practice of Christian heart burial began in the 20th century, continued with increasing momentum in succeeding centuries. Much of the interest in affording the heart special treatment after death came about because of the wish of many medieval crusaders to have their heart buried in the Holy Land. Despite Boniface's edict, papal dispensations were sometimes granted to facilitate the burial of the hearts of the pious and famous in Jerusalem. Two stories are told about the fate of the heart of Robert the Bruce, King of Scotland, who died of leprosy in 1329. The king's wish was recorded in a translation of Froissart's Chronicles. I will that as soon as I am trespassed out of this world, that ye take my heart out of my body and trespass out of this world, that ye and embalm it, and take of my treasure as ye shall think. It's so funny how they're spelling this stuff. It's so weird. Sufficient for the enterprise, and present my heart to the holy sepulchre, whereas our Lord lay, saying my body cannot come there. Other sources claim that Bruce merely wanted his heart to be taken to the Palestine to be blessed and then brought back to be buried at Melrose. That's my grandson. In one account, James Douglas, to whom the organ was entrusted, carried it to Jerusalem and buried it in a gold box before the altar of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. An alternative and more authentic version tells of how, passing through Spain en route to the Holy Land, and with the silver casket containing the heart hung around his neck, Douglas did battle with a troop of Moors. Surrounded by the enemy, he flung the casket, saying, "Pass first and fight as thou wert wont to be. Douglas will follow or die." Douglas died, his body falling on the casket. The heart was recovered and sent home and was subsequently buried at Melrose. More recently, hold on, where the heck am I? I had to look at the time really quick. Okay, so more recently in 1900, another illustrious Scot, John Marquis of Bute, had his body buried in Scotland, but his heart and its golden casket came to rest on the Mount of Olives. There were other more pragmatic reasons why the Catholic Church finally came to condone the practice of separating the heart from the rest of the corpse. Firstly, there was the economical use of space within a church. Such was the demand of clergy and laity alike to be buried inside a church, rather than in a graveyard outside. Hold on a second. That an expedient compromise was to bury the corpse without an urn heart within the church precincts. Antiquaries have long commented on the large number of urns found around the floorboards of old churches and cathedrals containing the shriveled up remains of hearts. The Catholic Church also came to accept the separation of the heart from the body in order to satisfy the demand for holy relics, since, as we have seen, saintly hearts could be bartered and traded in the political arena. So grotesque. Like, what's wrong with people? Jeez, oh Pete. But the practice of separate heart burial found greatest favor with European royalty and their aristocracy, whatever you want to call it. Jean, Queen of Navarre, kept the heart of her husband King Philippe, who died in 1343, until her own death, when her orders it was enshrined in the same urn as her own and placed at the Jacobins' church in Paris. English royalty embraced heart burial with gusto. Richard the Lionheart directed that his body be placed with his father Henry II at Fontevraud Abbey, but that his heart be presented to the citizens of Rome as a sign of his gratitude. The leaden box containing the heart was rediscovered in Rome Cathedral as recently as 1838. Withered to the semblance of a faded leaf, a less romantic version of the story, as Coeur de Lion's heart buried in a church in Barking. Even more ignominious is the fate of the hearts of the two Tudor queens. They were deposited in the same vault in Westminster Abbey, where they remained undisturbed until 1670. In that year, when the vault was opened for the funeral of the Duke of Albemarle, a boy named William Taswell opened up two urns, one labeled Queen Mary Tudor and other Queen Elizabeth. The urchin dipped his hand into each and took out a red, glutinous substance. That's so gross. Somewhat resembling mortar. Like, what the fuck, dude? Seriously. Freaking weird. Big Bang Theory. That's a good show. Can't believe it ended. Okay, where the fuck was I? Like, this guy is gross. A less romantic version of the story was Coeur de Lion's heart in a church in Barking. I think I read that already. Even more ignominious is the fate of the hearts of the two Tudor queens. Yes, and he reached in it somewhat resembled mortar. But perhaps the greatest posthumous indignity befell James II and the VII, who died in exile in Paris. His heart, encased in lead and enclosed in a casket of silver gilt, was deposited at the chapel of the Visitation at Paris. His other viscera were divided between Saint-Germain-en-Laye and the English College at Saint-Omer. His brain in a bronze gilt urn and was given to the Scots College in Paris. The body was deposited with with the English Benedictines in the forlorn hope that sometime in the future James would be permitted to rest with his peers in Westminster Abbey. When seen in 1793, the corpse was found to be swaddled like a mummy and in bandages smelling strongly of vinegar and camphor. All hopes of Westminster Abbey were dashed when James's coffin was broken up by the revolutionaries for the sake of its lead. The internment of the relics that remained took place at Saint-Germain in 1824. Occasionally, people other than the aristocracy would have their hearts disposed of separately. David Livingstone's heart was buried in his beloved Africa. Shelley's heart refused to be burned and is preserved at Boscombe Manor House in Hampshire. A story probably apocryphal, that's what it is, yes, recounts that a cat stole and ate Thomas Hardy's heart as it was being prepared for burial in 1928. The more accepted version was Hardy's heart buried in the churchyard of St. Michael's in Stinsford, Dorset. Almost 200 years earlier, when a Duke of Orleans was being embalmed, a Great Dane pronounced on his dead master's heart and had eaten a good quarter before it could be retrieved. Ew. Ew. When John Hunter died in 1793, he requested that his body be buried, but that his heart be preserved in his famous museum. His wish was ignored, perhaps deservedly, when one recalls how Hunter had ignored the wishes of Charles O'Brien. He was buried in the crypt of St. Martin in the Fields, where his coffin was lost for over 60 years. In 1859, when the vaults were to be cleared, Frank Buckland went searching for and eventually identified Hunter's coffin among the hundreds that lay sequestered there. Hunter was subsequently reinterred in the place in which James II would have dearly wished to have been buried, Westminster Abbey. A unique heart memorial was contrived from Johannes Wepfer. When this great anatomist died, his friend decided to honor the man who was the first to describe the link between damage to the cerebral blood vessels and strokes by bringing out a posthumous edition of his works in 1727. The book began with an illustrated account of the author's autopsy, and in a drawing captioned Memoria Wepferiana, the cause of Wepfer's death is plain to see, since the dissected heart and blood vessels show gross hardening of the arteries. It is gross. I hate doing it, but I'm glad I take cholesterol medicine. Anywho's, we have to go to our first music break. So on this break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band, or group, whatever you want to call it, Antidote for Savages. She's going to be singing Your Skeleton, Lemurian Crypto, Let Me Be Your Home, and Our New Reality. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
That I could take it, no matter how I felt.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Trying to get the lighting right, but it just ain't working. Let's whitewash this bitch. Hello, beautiful sister Sandra. Here, let me type that in really quick. Oh no. Yeah, that's about all I got. Anyways, thank you again for joining me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are reading this lovely book, Death, A History of Man's Obsessions and Fears. Check it out, I got like a little cemetery scene on there. Over here there's like a haunted house. No, I'm not flipping you off. What are you talking about? I didn't do that. So in this book, the next chapter is head shrinking. There is shrinkage of the head. Weird. How come... Here, let me turn it off and back on. It's not showing up. Maybe it'll come up here pretty soon. There is a time gap, so I don't know. Bear with me, grr. Oh, and let me know if this background music is too loud too. Let me check over here, see how it looks. Oh look, my mic was muted. Good thing I looked over there. Over here, yep, everything's going good. It's working. I did it. That's my grandson says a lot. I did it. Just as Jean Nevers stored her husband's heart until her own death, Sir Walter Raleigh's widow held on to the head of the Elizabethan hero. After his execution, Sir Walter's embalmed head was carried around in a leather bag until his wife's own death. Such practices, unusual in England, were more reminiscent of the headhunters of South Africa, who would collect the heads of relatives or vanquished enemies for ritual and religious purposes. There's been many misconceptions about how Amazonian tribes were able to shrink the bones of the skull and jaw in order to produce a shrunken head. In reality, only the skin and soft tissues were reduced in size, the bones being discarded at an early age. The first step was the removal of the head from the body. The incision was made through the neck as close as possible to the chest. The bones of the spine were then cut through with a sharp blade. A short length of wood was pushed through the victim's mouth, exiting at the cut end of the gullet. In such a way, the head could be hung from a waist, while the victorious natives made off to shrink the heads at leisure. Weird. A long incision was made at the back of the neck and extended up to the crown of the head. The scalp was then peeled away from the skull beneath. Separation of the skin from the bone was relatively easy when working on the back of the head, but became increasingly more intricate when separating the face from the deeper structure. The skull and the lower jaw were detached and discarded. The eyelids were sewn together, and slippers of palm wood held the mouth closed. Water was then boiled in an earthenware pot in which were placed the scalp and face. After 2 hours, the specimen was taken out of the water, and the two halves of the scalp were sewn together to produce a bag, open at the neck. Into this pouch were placed large, hot stones, whose effect was to shrink the skin tissues. The shrinkage occurred. Smaller stones were successively used. Hot sand was poured in to produce a final reduction to about the size of a large orange. To maintain the proportions, of the facial structures to the head, the eyelashes and eyebrows were plucked to the correct lengths. Next, the head was smoked overnight by suspension above a fire. In this way, the skin became dark and leathery, and the features of the face, especially the nose and the mouth, were manipulated to make it resemble its original state. Finally, the face was painted and ornamented. In the late 1800s, many European museums vied with each other to obtain shrunken heads for their collections. Consequently, a brisk trade in counterfeit heads grew up, with practices reminiscent of the British resurrectionists. The bodies of paupers were either stolen or exhumed by the Indians, who would then decapitate them and shrink the heads for roughly $25 each. What a steal! 3. So I believe it's chapter 3. I can't believe it because holy shit, these chapters are really long. The Incorruptibles. So this picture is Saint Teresa Margaret of the Sacred Heart, 1747 to 70. Exhumed in 1783, the body was found to be perfectly incorrupt. In 1805, it was declared to be surprisingly elastic and pliable. How would they know that? But here's that picture. Isn't that creepy? What the hey? Most experts categorize mummies in 2 groups: those that have been naturally dissected or desiccated by burial in hot sand, for instance, and those that have been artificially produced by processes akin to embalming. But some cite a 3rd group, consisting mainly of saints, whose bodies have resisted decay by virtue of their sanctity. These are the Incorruptibles. To the devout, there are many examples of holy corpses that have defied the natural disintegrative processes. Besides the absence of decay, these relics often have a number of other things in common, unlike invariable show signs of rigidity and shrinkage. Incorruptibles retain their suppleness and flexibility despite the passage of centuries. They are often described as sleeping rather than dead. Jeez, oh Pete. Naturally, skeptics disagree about the need to invoke miraculous intervention to explain what they would regard as bodies accidentally preserved by dint of unusual circumstances. Hold on. Drop my mail. Damn you. So here is a picture of the remains of Saint Francis Xavier, 1506 to 52, being borne in procession to the Basilica of Bom Jesus, Goa, India, in their final exhibition in 1975. Many bits of the saint's anatomy had been taken away as holy relics. It's so gross how people do that, but here's that picture. Yeah, they take different things like their fingers and peni and maybe ears, teeth. Teeth is a big thing. Really freaking weird. So let us take as an example Saint Teresa Margaret of Sacred Heart, born Anna Maria Redi, 1747 through 70. Anna was born in Italy and interred at Carmelite Convent in Florence in her middle opulence. During her lifetime, she was credited with performing numerous miraculous cures. She herself died of a gangrenous condition which caused her 18 months of excruciating pain. Could you imagine a year and 6 months of doing that? Not cool. On her death, the black gangrene soon began to change into faint rose hue, which gave her a more angelic beauty than when she was alive. 2 days later, her hands and feet changed to the glow of living fresh. And, geez, oh Pete, and the whole body was enveloped in a most delightful odor. In short, Saint Teresa had become an incorruptible. That's pretty cool, incorruptible. Days post-mortem. Hello, Adrena. What's up, Adrena? Damn, I haven't seen you in years too. I was just talking to Jamie and I was like, man, what's it been like 20 years? For you and I think it's been like shit. I would say 5, but I'm thinking like 10 years. Holy shnikey, sister. Hope you're doing good. You're beautiful. I love you. I hope that New Mexico, the land of entrapment, is taking very good care of you. Okay, so 15 days post-mortem, she was examined by an archbishop, numerous minor clerics, and 3 physicians. All was unchanged. There were no signs of putrefaction, and the sweet fragrance persisted. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like 10 years. That's what it feels like. I think it was like pre-Floyd. When you went to that horseshoe, so Eagle Park, where the horseshoes are thrown. I want to play horseshoes. I really love it. I actually got a pair of those, or a set of those, and taped them and then put like glow-in-the-dark paint on it so you can play at night. But the only thing is you have to recharge it with a flashlight, and that's pretty dangerous. Stay away from the posts that the people throw. Jeez, oh Pete. Okay. So 13 years after burial, when the body was exhumed in order to move the saint to a drier location, it was found to be perfectly incorrupt. In 1805, she was again disturbed and was described thus: healthy flesh, color somewhat dry, but nevertheless surprisingly elastic and pliable. The color of the hair on the head, livid and fresh. Eyebrows, golden blonde. And a previous wound on the right foot healed and of good color. Teresa was canonized in 1934, and her body, now dark and dry, but still perfectly incorrupt, can be seen in the chapel of the monastery of Santa Teresa de Bruni in Florence. To Catholics, Saint Teresa is an example of miraculous incorruption. Others have mooted alternative explanations. The most secular reason for the rousiness and fragrance of the corpse was the clandestine attempt at post-mortem cosmetics in order to make the deceased look more attractive and to try to dissipate the color and offensive odor of gangrene. Indeed, convert embalming is the most common explanation put forward for the corruption appearance of saints, especially in the case of one of the most famous of all incorruptibles, Saint Francis Xavier, 1506-52. Francis Xavier died in China, but 10 weeks after his burial, he was exhumed and shipped to Malacca. 5 months later, he was dug up for a second time and taken to the Basilica of the Balm Jesus in Gao, where he remains to this day. His body was deemed incorrupt, and to Scotch talk of secret embalming, Dr. Cosmas Sarroui, or Sarawi, in 1556 declared on oath that no artificial preservatives had been used. At that time, the doctor noted, but did not comment upon, an incision which had been made on Xavier's chest. In 1614, the body was described as beautiful and whole. The right eye open and fresh, while the legs and fingers were fresh but dry. In the same year, the saint's right forearm was removed to join Saint Ignatius Loyola as a holy relic in Rome. When the rest of the body was examined by priests 142 years after death, the saint was described as having black, lively eyes, bright reddish lips, vermilion-tinted cheeks, a moist, flexible tongue. How do they know that? So gross. Ew. And a beautifully proportioned chin, and the body had all the appearance of being living or a living man. A number of the saint's toes were missing, one having been bitten off by Donna Isabel de Caram in 1544. Like, what the fuck is wrong with that bitch? Dude, seriously, gross. Bits of Xavier have been distributed throughout the world. Besides the right forearm in Rome, the rest of the right arm went to Japan, a toe went to Spain, and the left hand went to rest of the right arm went to Japan. Hold on. Okay, so the left hand went to Cochin, a shoulder blade to Malacca. What remains, dry and shrunken, stayed in Gao. The body was last exhibited in 1974, when a priest commented that it looked as though the saint was only sleeping. Believers dismiss all talk of clandestine embalming and cite Dr. Saraia's examination of the body. What is usually omitted is that the examination took place by candlelight, and that the body was not stripped. Ambrose de Ribera, representing the Inquisition, that reminds me of Monty Python. Poke him with the cushy pillows. Holy shit. That'll teach you. Noted a wound in the abdomen which had been missed by the doctor. This abdominal incision may have been made by embalmers. Others contend that it was made in order to remove the internal organs to satisfy the insatiable demand for relics. The central tenet of advocates of miraculous intervention is the belief that the saints have remained incorrupt for centuries in conditions which would have rapidly reduced any other body to a putrefied mass. Since moisture is a major catalyst for putrefaction, how is it that Charbel Metrov remained incorrupt despite floating for 4 months in the mud at the bottom of a flooded grave? Or Saint Josaphat, corrupt after a week in a river? Or, most remarkably, Saint Andrew Bobola, flayed alive, hands hacked from his body, tongue torn from his head, splinters driven under his fingernails. Ooh, shit. Exhumed after 40 years in a grave so damped that his vestments were rotted, yet described as a soft, flexible body showing no evidence of decay. Whilst eschewing accusations of false witness, skeptics wonder out loud why, after being incorrupt for centuries, most present-day examples of incorruption are hard, brittle, blackened bodies who would be deemed dead and not sleeping. A specimen which does appear to be better preserved St. Catherine Labour, 1806 to 76, lying in the chapel of Our Lady of the Sun in Paris, is known to have been injected with a solution of formaldehyde, glycerin, carbolic acid at the time of her exhumation in 1933 to ensure preservation. See, I just saw something pop up on... See, why the heck does this stuff keep doing this? I don't know. CenturyLink, I'm so sick of it. Hopefully I can find a better one. But anywho's, here's a well-preserved body of Saint Bernadette Soubirious, 1844 to 79, who saw her first vision of the Virgin Mary at Lourdes in 1858. She was exhumed in 1909 and again in 1919 before being placed in a coffin of gold and glass in Nevers. She's very well preserved. Like, check this out. Look at her. That's pretty amazing. She just looks like she's sleeping. So in 1981, a remarkably well-preserved body. Okay, so this is an unholy, incorruptible. So in 1981, a remarkably well-preserved body was found at St. Bees Priory in Cumbria. Although buried close to the monks' cemetery, this, the only preserved body among the most of skeletons, was the corpse not of a holy man, but of a medieval knight. The nobleman had been wrapped in shrouds, over which a wax and honey mixture had been poured. The body was then enveloped in a sheet of lead and packed with clay inside a wooden coffin. Inside this microenvironment, the normal disintegrative processes had been arrested. When the body was unwrapped, the knight was exposed for the first time in 7 centuries, naked except for 2 pieces of string, one around his neck, the other around his penis. The pink hue of the skin quickly faded, but the eyes were well preserved and the heart and intestines intact. The liver, when cut, appeared bright, kind of bright pink initially, and the vessels and the other organs appeared to contain fresh blood. Experts believe that an unusual body was produced by a combination of rapid embalming and a unique combination of environmental conditions. So, this other picture is very grotesque. Like, so nowadays, like, they'll sew the jaw up into the upper portion. Like, they'll take a needle, put it through here, go up through the gums, and, like, sew it closed, because otherwise you have a gaping hole or a mouth or something. But this is the head of a medieval nobleman found at St. Bees Priory, Cumbria, in 1981. Preservation had been enhanced by rapid embalming of the corpse, which had then been wrapped in lead and packed in clay. The body was later reburied. Like I'm saying, like, that's gross. That's grotesque. Ew. The Capuchin Catacombs of Palermo. This truly remarkable burial place dates back to 1599. Initially, it was intended as the last resting place of the Capuchin monks of Palermo, but over the centuries, the inordinate demand of others to be buried there led to its division into sections. For monks, men, women, children, professors, and priests. At the present time, there are over 8,000 bodies in varying degrees of preservation, although a small number of bodies were preserved by being dipped in solutions of arsenic or lime. Weird. The vast majority have been mummified by simple dissection or desiccation. The corpses were first laid on grills made of terracotta tubes in a hermetically sealed cell. After months, the bodies were removed and placed in a bath of aromatic herbs and vinegar before finally being exposed to the Mediterranean sun. The bodies were then dressed and placed in niches. These long-dead silicons are arranged along the walls of the catacombs, some horizontally, others vertically, some as if only sleeping, many appearing to be grinning grotesquely, the very stuff of nightmares. One of the most remarkable of all the bodies on show in the Capuchin Church is that of a child. Probably one of the best examples of embalming to be seen anywhere in the world. 2-year-old Rosalia Lombardo died in the 1920s and was embalmed by a local physician, Dr. Solafia. Ironically, he himself died shortly after embalming and took the details of his technique with him to the grave. So here we have the central corridor of the Capuchin Monastery in Palermo, Sicily. Isn't that pretty? And then these other pictures. Okay, so a husband and wife, 2 of the desiccated bodies on display at the Capuchin Monastery in Palermo, Sicily. So there's those guys. And then this next picture, and she's so beautiful. I don't know, it just hurts my heart when parents lose kids so early. But the body of Rosalia Lombardo on view at the Capuchin Monastery in Palermo, Sicily. The child died in December 1920. Aged 2 years, the body was preserved by injections given immediately after death by Dr. Solafia. Look at how pretty she is. She's so beautiful. She's so birdie. Man. Chapter 4. What time is it? Oh, we got a little bit of time. Oh, I just spent this page. Damn it all! 20th century embalming, an art long dead in Europe, has had a 20th century renaissance in North America. Embalming in the United States has become an integral and essential part of the highly profitable business centered on the disposal of the dead. But embalming, American style, bears very little resemblance in either its purpose or practice to the methods of bodily preservation used by ancient Egyptians. Okay, so I have to say, I don't know if you guys watched the Watcher series. These 2 guys, they've recently been playing different video games, and one of the video games was like the morgue assistant. So they're dealing with bodies, and you have to make an incision here, you put a tube in here, and then something here, and then you let the blood flow from the body, and then you embalm it. Like, it's pretty intricate, like pretty detailed as far as like what the fuck you do as a mortician's assistant. I had a friend that did that, and he ended up killing himself, but it's pretty insane, and there's like a haunting and a demonic possession and other things like that going on. Like, I don't know, it's pretty strange, but check it out. Watch The Watcher. It's pretty damn cool. In the Egyptian religion, it is essential to maintain the body's physical integrity in order that the Ka, or soul, should be able to recognize and reoccupy its former carcass, and thus ensure eternal life. In modern America, bodies are embalmed for purely cosmetic reasons, and its effects last a little longer than the length of time it takes to put a corpse underground. Dr. Jesse Carr, head of pathology at the San Francisco General Hospital, was quoted by Jessica Mitford in The American Way of Death. Her book about American funeral practices as saying, "An exhumed, embalmed body is a repugnant, moldy, foul-looking object. The body itself may be intact as far as contours and so on, but the silk lining of the casket is all stained with body fluids. The wood is rotting and the body is covered with mold. Burial in a sealed metal coffin makes matters worse, not better, since anaerobic bacteria, those that thrive in airless conditions, reduce a body to a petrified mass even more quickly." In contemporary America, according to Carr, the Ka would have a hopeless task. What then are these modern embalming methods which compare so unfavorably with those used thousands of years ago? Modern American embalming can be said to have started with Dr. Thomas Holmes, 1817 to 1900. During the Civil War, Holmes was asked by President Lincoln to devise a method of preserving the bodies of Union soldiers long enough for their transportation from the southern battlefields to their homes in the North. Holmes' method was crude and temporary. He would inject into an artery a solution of bichloride of mercury. Although it is not recommended, it is to be hoped that this technique had improved by the time he was called upon to give his services to the president himself. After the Civil War, there was little call for embalming due to a combination of poisonous effects that mercury solutions had upon the embalmers and their effectiveness in producing an aesthetically pleasing preserved corpse. Arsenical solutions replaced mercurial ones, but the results are often just as unsatisfactory. Both arsenic and mercury are, as well as lead, zinc, and other metals, were subsequently banned as preservative substances for medico-legal reasons. They constituted a poisoner's charter whereby the evidence of murder could be masked by the embalmer's chemicals. Other embalming techniques were equally as primitive. Cavity embalming consisted merely of injecting large amounts of preservative solutions into the chest and abdominal cavities. What the fuck is that sound? Is that the washer? I don't know. Okay, so let's see. Where were we? Arsenical solutions replaced mercurial ones, but the results were often just as unsatisfactory. Both arsenic and mercury, as well as lead, zinc, and other metals, were subsequently banned, yes, I know I read this, as preservative substances for medico-legal reasons. They constituted a poisoner's charter, whereby the evidence of murder could be masked by the embalmer's chemicals. Other embalming techniques were equally as primitive. Cavity embalming consisted merely of injecting large amounts of preservative solutions into the chest and abdominal cavities through a wide-bore needle called a trocar. Such injections were often combined with moistening the face with a preservative mixture of aluminum sulfate and mercury bichloride. Cranial injection, as its name implies, consisted of inserting a trocar into the skull through either the base of the neck or the corner of the eye or up through the nostril. Embalming only really rose out of the doldrums with the discovery of the preservative properties of formaldehyde. Blum discovered the hardening action of formaldehyde in 1893. This substance, injected into the blood vessels of a corpse, has the dual effect of disinfecting and preserving. Much use to be made of the disinfecting properties of formaldehyde, but with greater candor, it is now conceded. I think this continues, but here is Princess Grace of Monaco. Are you fucking serious? Formerly the film actress Grace Kelly lies in state in the Palatine Chapel. Her famed beauty is preserved despite the serious injuries she sustained in a failed car crash. Look at how beautiful she is. She's so pretty. Oh my goodness. It is conceded by most American undertakers that the sole function of embalming is to produce a short-term, superficial, but aesthetically pleasing preservative effect for the benefit of grieving relatives. It's either in my jacket or on the thing by the door. The embalmer's job is to enhance the memory picture, a psychological dubious concept supposedly compromising the bereaved's last glimpse of the deceased. In a defensive style, one of the standard embalming textbooks says, "It is our purpose to serve the living, not to create museum specimens for the amazement of those who may populate the earth many centuries in the future." Few intelligent people fear or object to the eventual return of the body to the dust from which it originated. What they do fear and abhor is the thought of the putrefaction or putrefative or rotting process. Embalming eliminates the putrefaction or rotting and permits the body to return to its component elements through the gradual clean process of oxidization and dissolution. Perhaps this is not the place to inquire too deeply into the differences between putrefaction and clean dissolution. Alright, we still have a few more minutes. The theory and practice of arterial embalming have changed little from the time of William Hunter. Only the particular chemicals differ. In the living, the heart pumps blood into the arteries, which feed into the vast system of smaller blood vessels called capillaries, from which the blood drains into veins and is directed back to the heart for the cycle to start over again. At any one time, the majority of the capillaries are empty, and this potential space allows embalmers to inject large quantities of solution into the vascular system without noticeable dissentation of the corpse. In practice, embalming essentially consists of the draining from the body of blood and its replacements by formaldehyde pumped in under pressure. The formaldehyde in the arteries pushes blood ahead of itself, which is then drained from the body through a vein. Favored arterial injection sites include the carotid artery in the neck and the brachial artery in the arm, the femoral artery in the groin, and the aorta. Drainage veins include the jugular in the neck, the brachial and femoral veins, and the inferior vena cava. The large abdominal vein tracking back to the heart. The sooner embalming begins, the better in Britain, where there is likely to be considerable delay between death and embalming. The blood is often clotted, and it then becomes necessary to withdraw blood via a large trocar inserted into the heart itself. In the capillaries, the preservative solution reacts with the protein within the body cells to produce an insoluble substance. The effects of formaldehyde depend on its concentration. Too strong a solution fixes the tissue too rapidly, coagulates the blood, and causes obstruction in the blood vessels. Too weak a solution often has insufficient preservative action. Strong formaldehyde solutions also cause shrinkage by dehydration and overhardening and produce a brown discoloration. The dehydration is counteracted by adding glycerin to the formaldehyde solution, and borax is used to keep the blood fluid and to help break up blood clots. Dyes such as safranine, methyl red, and eosine yellow are mixed in the embalming fluids to create the illusion of the soft, warm glow of life. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our second music break, and then we'll follow up this third hour with Reddit ghost stories. So I hope you guys like ghost stories, because that's where we're going. So on this break, we have Miss Mia Savage and her group or band. Her musical theory, Antidote for Savages, she'll be singing Bury Me in Heaven, which is one of my favorites of hers. And then Not a Phase, another good one, Singing to Your Grave. And the bottom line, you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. See you soon. So go take a tea and a pee, get some hot tea or, whatever you want to drink. See you back here in a few.
Just a choice right now between fear and love. Right now, between fear and love.
Welcome back. Sorry. And thank you so much for joining me this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Holy shit. Oh, man. Hurts so good. Oh, yeah. So, for the third hour, we always follow up whatever book we're reading with Reddit ghost stories. Look at my hair. It's crazy. I can't breathe and my calves hurt. It's insane. So this one is by u/STNRGRL10. My 3-year-old saw a frightening ghost. So, in 2007, when we first moved into our house, I was laying in my bed with my then 3-year-old daughter. And she asked me who that lady was. I asked her, what lady? And she pointed to the ceiling corner of the room and said, that lady with the red eyes. That was the only scary encounter, but there were more. That's pretty creepy, like when your kids see stuff. Seriously, it's insane. This one is by u/K Griffin with 3 F's. My Nanny's Haunted House. So this story is short, but safe to say it creeped me the hell out because I still tell it to people ever so often. My nanny, Mom's mom, lived in an older house when I was younger. My family always joked that it was haunted because we always heard bumps and bangs and stuff of the sorts. Just overall, it gave me a creepy-ass vibe. I got to where I wouldn't stay the night over there unless I had to because my parents worked a lot. When I was about 15, I was staying at Nanny's and we were in her bathroom doing something, getting ready for bed. It was just me and Nanny alone in the house, aside from my older poodle. Rest in peace, Brandy, the best doggo ever. Anyways, out of nowhere, we heard a huge crash coming from the kitchen. We ran in there to find Brandy hiding under the kitchen table and trembling, and her food dishes upside down across the kitchen from where they normally sit. They were heavy ceramic bowls that sat in a metal kind of tray stand type thing, and the water and food was everywhere. At first we were like, Brandy, what did you do? And then we kind of realized that the bowls and tray weighed more than she did, as she was probably 8 pounds or so. Plus, she was pretty old at this point. The stand was also upside down in the middle of the kitchen. No clue what happened that night, but safe to say, we were thoroughly freaked out. Laugh out loud. Tee-hee-hee-hee. Other things happened often, like stuff falling off the walls and such. I'm glad she doesn't live there anymore. It's kind of like it was at my granny's house. Like, on the way there, I was so freaked out, and then I passed out, and then get there, and then I passed out some more. I don't know if it was time change or what, but her house was so fucking freaky. And she had one of those, like, JCPenney houses that you'd, like, order out of the catalog, and I don't know, it was pretty insane. It was a very nice house, very well structured, but very strange for sure. This one is by u/mist3ry, so Mist Theory _US3R. The hallway. So, for some backstory, when I was in the womb, my dad killed himself because his friends told him to. He was 18. My grandmother told me about how, when I was a baby, I would go to the hallway and talk to someone even though no one was there. And when she would ask who I was talking to, I would say, my dad. That's so sad. It's so unfortunate when people kill themselves, like, they see really no way out. Okay, so this one is by u/rouge_regina. Your Gina. Okay, I have to ask. Has anyone encountered spirit activity near any of the sites from 9/11? I imagine there would likely have to be, given what happened and how many were lost, especially in Manhattan. It is honestly something I have thought about a few times over the last 20 years. Seems a bit of a ghoulish form of tourism to me, but we visit battle sites too, so anyone who has visited to pay their respects, have you seen or felt anything? I could imagine that there would be a lot of stuff going on there, and I love the monument they built. It's so beautiful, so respective in the perspective of the lives lost, not only the people on the airplanes, but the people there in the building. We can, oh shit! Let me look at this. Sorry, Jason. Oh man, I was muted. Thank you, Jason. Damn. I wonder if I should retell those stories. You see my lips moving, but nothing's coming out. Okay, so I'll restart. Ready? This one is by u/STNR Girl 10. GRL 10. My 3-year-old saw a frightening ghost. I'm sorry, you guys. I had some doggy drama, and I'm still out of breath. I'm like, I did these heart tests. They all came back fine, but still trying to catch up. Anyways, I'm sorry I was muted. I totally forgot about that. Thank you, Jason, once more for bringing that up, because that's redonkulous. Thank you, Sandra. I think I have it fixed. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Let me turn off the cam and see if I'm bouncing. I'm bouncing! Yay! Okay. So, in 2007, when we first moved into our house, I was lying in my bed with my then 3-year-old daughter. She asked me who that lady was. I asked her, what lady? She pointed to the ceiling corner of the room and said, that lady with the red eyes. That was the only scary encounter, but there were more. So was that the only scary encounter? I don't know. You kind of went back and forth on yourself. So this one is by U/K Griffin. And it says, My Nanny's Haunted House. This story is short, but safe to say it creeped me the hell out because I still felt it, and I tell it to people ever so often. My nanny, aka Mom's mom, lived in an older house when I was younger. My family always joked that it was haunted because we always heard bumps and bangs and stuff of the sort. Anywho, just overall, it gave a creepy vibe. I got to where I wouldn't stay the night over there unless I really had to. And my parents worked a lot, so I did stay there quite often. When I was about 15, I was staying at Nanny's and we were in the bathroom doing something, getting ready for bed. It was just me and Nanny alone in the house, aside from our older poodle. Rest in peace, Branny, the best doggo ever. Anyways, out of nowhere, we heard a huge crash coming from the kitchen. We ran in there to find Brandy hiding under the kitchen table and trembling, and her food dishes upside down across the kitchen from where they normally sit. They were heavy ceramic bowls and sat down on a metal kind of tray, stand type of thing. Water and food everywhere. At first, we were like, Brandy, what did you do? And then we kind of realized that the bowls and trays weighed more than she did, as she was probably 8 pounds or so, plus she was pretty old at this point. The stand was also upside down in the middle of the kitchen. No clue what happened that night, but safe to say, we were thoroughly freaked out. Other things happened, often like that, things falling off the walls and such. I'm glad she doesn't live there anymore. And like I said before, yeah, it kind of reminds me of my granny's house. Oh, man. The hallway. So for some backstory, when I was in the womb, my dad killed himself because his friends told him to, and he was like 18. My grandmother told me about how when I was a baby, I would go to the hallway and talk to someone, though no one was there. And when she would ask who I was talking to, I would say, my dad. So that's about where we picked up. Okay, so this is the last story I told when I was muted. Okay, so yes, you can hear me now, Sandra? This is by Rouge_Regina. Not my Gina, but your Gina. I have to ask, has anyone encountered spirit activity near any of the sites from 9/11? I imagine there would likely have to be, given what happened and how many were lost, especially in Manhattan. It is honestly something I have thought about a few times over the last 20 years. Seems a bit of a ghoulish form of tourism to me, but we visit battlefield sites too, so anyone who has visited to pay their respects, have you seen or felt anything? Metron Cat said, I had a friend who stayed a short time in an apartment across the street from Ground Zero. I stayed there a few times, and after a night on the town, I couldn't tell if the area had a cold, dark energy or it just felt weird being there because I knew about what had happened. This one's by Milad Justed Musician. I usually stay at the Millennium Hilton Hotel across the street from the site, and when I visit New York, I have never encountered anything out of the ordinary. The whole place is quiet and peaceful. I like being in that part of town. And it's so beautiful what they did with that site, how they rebuilt it. Still, you can't hear me? What the fuck, dude? I'm unmuted. It shows that I'm bouncing. What the crack is happening? Let me go back over here. That one's on. Yeah, I'm bouncing. Jason, you can't hear me? 9:25. That was 2 minutes ago. Still, what? Here, let me mute this. Am I bouncing? Yes, I'm bouncing. Okay, good. Yeah, so all I can say is maybe reset? Ooh. Shit. These nails are a pain in the ass. Because my voice. I almost said I'm bouncing, but yeah, my voice. Oh, shit. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's supposed to be music in the background. Not id. Bouncing. Like a bouncy baby boy. Okay, so, Shepherder, okay, 1448 says, you're talking Manhattan here, so in theory, if the Trade Center is haunted, you wouldn't notice the difference between... Okay, good. Thank you, champ. Thank you, Sandra. Jason, reset your shit. I think it's broken. If you reset, you may be able to hear me, but... Manhattan here is in theory of the Trade Center. If it's haunted, you wouldn't notice the difference between a living person or a spirit because they would be hidden in plain sight and blend in. Manhattan has a way too much energy, over 2 million people who live on the island alone. There have been no reports of the new building being haunted, so we can assume the spirits are at rest. However, since body parts and there are pictures were strewn all over the city where the buildings imploded, you would think there would be reports of spirit sightings, but so far there are none. New York City does have its most haunted places, just not the 9/11 victims so far. Okay, so I've heard different stories, and so, you know, I do have to argue about that. Also, maybe the music's a little loud? Yeah, it does look a little loud. Let me turn that down. That's better, I think. Let's go to 58. Let's make it an even number. No, not 59, 58 I said 58. Come on, work with me. Work it. There we go. So, Storm Maria says, here you go. Here's a book I found. Here's another article. Here's a podcast type YouTube video that's discusses paranormal encounters. There used to be a video on YouTube of a ghost rising from the embers of one of the towers. I couldn't find it on YouTube anymore, and what footage I could find through news websites were blurry. But yeah, just like the Oklahoma City bombing, there was a ghost that was seen at the 9/11 site. Like she was saying, like when the buildings were still, like the rubble was still there, you saw this thing rising out of the ground. But it's kind of like this lady that contacted me, and I told her, like, you could be seeing spirits, but you just don't realize it because, you know, they can blend in. You know, you can walk by a person on the street, they look just like you and me, but you don't realize they're a spirit, you know, because they kind of blend in. It's pretty intriguing. This one is by you/arm_emotional6202. First ever ghost experience. So this happened around 2022. I was watching some videos in my room, and all of a sudden, behind me, something turned off the light for a split second. I thought it was my parents pranking me until I told them, and they were interested. Later, I found and heard some objects fall off of the hallway table, so I was skeptical of what had happened. Around 1 hour later, I was taking a look at my airsoft gun and saw 2 pair of shadow legs under my door. It walked into the room where it turned off the light. When I opened the door, nothing was in there. I thought it was my pets, but I couldn't find it in my room. And that was the entire experience. I couldn't find any other paranormal activity since. There's a shadow over my shoulder. This is by you/Urban Lore Podcast. Shadow over my shoulder. I was 18 years old a long time ago. My granddad had died suddenly the week before. He had not been ill. He was actually very healthy, but he was nearly 100. It was about a week after his funeral, and I was sitting on the floor in front of the living room we only used when we had company over. Otherwise, we used a much more comfy family room in the back of the house. I sat on the floor close to a sofa flipping through a book. I was the only one in the room. Out of the stereotypical corner of my eye, I saw or sensed a shadow figure. This is hard to explain, but it was between the sofa and a wall. The spaces between those two items was no more than 3 to 4 inches. I perceived this human-like figure to be leaning over the sofa, reading over my shoulder. I also felt like it was a 2-dimensional shadow, so I guess imagine a black cupboard human-shaped cutout, but bent at the waist to look over my shoulder. It seems like a detailed description, but there's really no way that I saw it for more than just a few seconds. I did a double take and it was gone. I was more surprised than scared. As I turned back towards my book, I saw the shadow move quickly down the far wall and through a closed door to a hallway. I never got up to look into the hall. I also never encountered the figure again. Jeez, oh Pete. Ew, screaming girl in my basement. I hear nothing. Hello. I'm a 14-year-old male, and this is my first posting a Reddit story because I need to get this out somewhere. I live in a 100-year-old 2-story double house with my family. I have been living here since I was 4 or 5. I have never had any haunted experiences at all until these past couple days. 2 days ago, at about 9:30 at night, my neighbor called my mother. She sounded frightened and said she heard screams in the basement by a little girl. My family and I are pretty loud, especially when watching basketball games, which we do about every day, so we expected at the time for this to be us. Sorry, I have to bounce back over here and see what you guys are saying. Okay, still good. But tonight, about an hour ago, 3 police persons walked by and had called 911 because of loud screams made by a little girl, supposedly coming from my basement. I do have a little sister, but she is only a couple years younger than me, and she definitely does not scream bloody murder on a daily basis. Our basement is unfinished, and usually only my mom goes down there to do laundry. We're always usually on the first floor. We said we were all fine, and after the police left, we searched the basement and found nothing. I'm surprised the police didn't go in there and search, you know? This is pretty creepy, and I don't know what to do. I will update if anything else happens. Oh, and also another note. I live next to an abandoned pasta factory that has been abandoned for many decades. It still stands and has no trespassing rules. I've heard many rumors that it is haunted, but like I said, I had nothing haunted happen until these past 2 days. Bam, bam, bam. Lady in the window. This one is by you, Airline Educational 88. Lady in the window. Years ago, my ex-wife and I were visiting her parents for Christmas in Illinois. We arrived late and were staying there in the guest room. About 2 a.m., I was awakened by the sound of children laughing and playing outside the bedroom window. I looked up and saw my mother-in-law standing in the window looking out at the children. I didn't think anything of it and simply rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning at breakfast, I asked my mother-in-law about coming into our room and looking out the window. She said, "I didn't come into your room last night. I would never just come in when guests are staying." Then my ex-wife said she couldn't have come in because I locked the door. I asked then, who was the lady standing and looking out the window? My mother-in-law looked at her husband and said, "He saw her." I said, "Her? Who is her?" She said, "We have a ghost that guests have seen standing in that window looking out. We don't know who she is, only that she is harmless. She just stands there looking out the window. Up until this visit, I did not believe in ghosts, but I know what I saw. I saw her so clearly that I thought it was my mother-in-law. Needless to say, my ex-wife and I stayed in a hotel for the rest of our visit. I am now a believer." This one is by u/DJ DEEJAY_707. My childhood home used to be a school, and I'm pretty sure it traumatized me. Now, I don't know a ton about the history of my childhood home, but I know that it was old as hell and one of the creepiest places I've ever lived. It was a 4-story house, fancy, right? With lots of dark spaces and long stairways. Basically, it was really big. There wasn't a moment in that house that I felt like I was truly alone, and there wasn't a hallway that felt truly empty. I was just barely out of toddlerhood when I started to develop a sincere anxiety. I was afraid to do anything alone. I always checked behind me, sleeping with my head under the covers, seeing things, hearing things, you name it. I'm almost 100% sure that there was something paranormal making me feel that way. I wasn't the only one seeing and hearing things, though. My older brother shared a room with me, and he always slept on the top bunk. His bed was maybe a foot away from the ceiling, and the attic was right above us. He told me that some nights he'd hear adult footsteps right above his head, just circling the attic. But it gets weirder. He's told me that at one point he woke up next to a shadowy figure, just lying in bed with him. He claims the figure had 2 white specks for eyes, and that it wasn't acting malicious, just lying there silently. This might have been some kind of sleep paralysis hallucination, but considering the other events, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some kind of spirit. And now on to the worst one. The playroom. Ew. That room was the creepiest fucking thing in the house, and it gets shivers, or gives me shivers, just thinking about it. It sat at the end of a long hallway on the top floor, just below the attic. My room was down the hall from it, and it was always pitch black. I remember staying up at night, staring at it just in case something moved. I often couldn't take my eyes away in fear of something appearing if it did. Somehow, every time I looked at that doorway, the door was wide open, and the door wasn't weak either. It worked perfectly fine and wouldn't open unless you turned the knob. I'd ask my dad to close it before I went to bed, and it would stay closed for a bit until it just slid open again. I'm not a door specialist, but it was just arguably creepy. But wait, there's more. Now that we're older and out of that house, me and my brother found out that we shared a terrifying experience. We both saw something incredibly creepy in the same place. I remember it vaguely. It was a small, neutral, glowing white face in the playroom. It looked a bit like a little kid from my memory. It had no body, just a pure white face in the dark. It was around my height, and its eyes were kind of just not there. I don't remember much, but I remember it was the single most terrifying thing I'd been through. I don't know if I hallucinated or what, but I know it felt incredibly real at the time. Maybe it was a dream or something, because all I remember is seeing that fucking face, getting scared and running back to my bed. I don't think I screamed, but I seriously don't remember. Kind of love/hate thinking about it because it just makes my hair stand on edge. Thanks to that house, I have now been diagnosed with anxiety. I am taking medication for it, and I'm alright, but I thought it was worth noting. I could go on, but I can't really think of anything else right now. Maybe next time, on the next post, there should be something about the attic or the basement. Nothing really happened there, but they freaked me out for sure. That one really doesn't have anything. You have to press a link, and I ain't going there. This one is by you/the-coyote-kid with 2 Ds. Jail ghosts. So, I worked at a county jail. One night I was working in the maximum security unit on the night shift. It was pretty boring with nothing to really do except checks, where we go around and look in each cell every 30 minutes or so to make sure everything was okay and the inmates were doing anything they weren't supposed to. It had been about 15 minutes or so since my last check, and I was sitting in the control room reading a book to pass the time. The control room sits higher than the floor level and looks out over the cell block. If a person of average height were to walk right by you, you would only see the top of their head. As I'm reading my book, I see out of my peripheral the top of a head, a bald head, walking past the window. I knew that nobody else was in the area, as another officer would have had to go through the 2 sets of remotely open doors, and there was no way past the control room. I looked up and into the cell block. I didn't see anyone. I then looked at the camera monitors, which showed every angle of the cell block. Still nothing. I put my book down and exited the control room, making sure to lock the door behind me in case an inmate got out of their cell. They couldn't lock me out of the control room. It's uncommon, but it is possible. I walked into the cell block, shining my flashlight into some of the more dimly lit areas. I took notice that I did not hear a cell door close, so if an inmate did get out of the cell, they would have either had to close their cell door incredibly quietly, or they were hiding somewhere. I radioed for another officer to respond to my location as backup. I began to conduct a check, making sure to count the inmate in each cell and pull on the door to make sure it was locked. When I reached the upper tier, one of the inmates was standing at the cell window and asked me what time it was. When I told him, he noted that I was early on my check and that I had been checking the doors. These guys really have nothing to do but watch you, so... The inmate asked if I saw the bald-headed guy. He must have seen the expression on my face because he had said that he was seen by somebody at least once a night, usually passing quickly by the cell windows. He said they always knew it was him because there were no bald officers on the night shift. I went back to the control room and locked it behind me. I asked the officer who responded as my backup about the bald-headed guy. He was a very senior officer and said that he had never personally seen him, but it wasn't uncommon for officers to report it. I never saw the bald-headed guy again. Eventually, I promoted, and every once in a while, an officer or inmate will ask about him. Very creepy. This one is by u/Strixhoot. The Ghost of the Boat People. Not my story, but told by my dad when he was a communist from Vietnam. One of my dad's friends was a thief. There used to be a family that lives in this house in their neighborhood. Because of the war, the family abandoned their house to escape to another country. With the house being abandoned for a very long time, the thief broke inside the family's house to steal their things. As the thief looks for items to steal, he hears someone crying from a room of the house. He swears the family's house was empty. The thief follows and sounds. The door opens and he investigates. It's kind of chunked up language. Yay, Jason, you hear me? Thank goodness. Yeah, I think I might have had okay, so at first I was muted, but then I might have had the background music turned up too loud. You know, too much of a good thing is not really good. Anywho's, okay, so as the thief looks for items to steal, he hears someone crying from a room of the house. He swears the family's house was empty. The thief follows the sounds and opens the door to investigate. What he saw was the ghost of the family mourning with all of their hair soaked red, which could only mean one thing. They died from drowning. This scares the thief, so he immediately ran out of the house, never returning to the house ever again. The fact that my dad knew the family scares me the most, and it scares me more than him telling me this story. Oh my god, Dad, you actually knew that family? That's so crazy. So this one is by u/educational_send7005. I saw a ghost in my attic. Really? You did? When I was a little girl, I lived in a gigantic house out in the country. The house was ginormous and Victorian style. It used to be used as an old age home and a museum. I was about 10 at the time, so it didn't really bug me. I just thought the house was interesting and I couldn't wait to explore it. After living there for a while, my two friends and my sister and I decided to play a game of hide and go seek. For my turn, I ended up searching in the attic for them, and I saw somebody with black hair and a red t-shirt crouched down on all fours, and I called out, "I see you there! I found you!" A couple of times, but the person didn't answer me. They just kept shifting back and forth. And that moment, I realized none of my friends had black hair. Or were wearing a red t-shirt. Adrenaline rushing through me, I bolted down the stairs. Once I was on the main floor, I heard people talking in my basement, so I went down there. Turns out my friends and sister were in the basement all along. When I realized they were all down there, I need for a fact that none of them, I think she meant I know for a fact. She said I need, but I think it's meant to be I know for a fact none of them were in the attic. So, who was in the attic? Oh no, it's very scary. You're scaring me. This one is by U/S Send Noodles. Here's a couple of ghost encounters from my friend's cottage. I'll start this saying that I'm sorry, but my English isn't 100%, so I hope you can read this. So me and 3 of my friends and one of my friend's parents were in my friend's cottage 3 years ago, I think. Fucking attic gnomes, right, Jason? Sorry, I got a little choked up. Whew. So 2 of my friends and the parent were outside of the beach, and I was with one of my friends. Inside, I'll call her Jay. I was playing video games upstairs, and Jay and I suddenly felt like someone was watching us. We didn't think much of it. The feeling didn't go away in like 10 minutes, and then it just stopped for me. Suddenly, we heard a big bang downstairs, and we were a bit scared of it and just let it be. After my other friends came inside, they came upstairs and asked, "Why is there a big fork on the floor?" I don't know what it's called in English, but it was like 1 meter long and heavy. I think it's like for the grill, where you turn your pork chops, your chicken breasts, your steaks. Yeah. We were like, what the fuck? At the moment, and told them everything. I saw a man standing in the hallway to the room where we were sleeping, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost shit myself. My friend, not Jay, told me one time when I wasn't there, someone I don't remember who was walking the stairs suddenly heard really fast running downstairs towards them. Someone in the family died in the house at the stairs. After they sold the cottage, they could afford since they could afford it, they took a couple of things in their house from it, and now their house is haunted. Sometimes I hear footsteps in there and knocking. That wasn't the only time I saw a guy standing on the second floor kitchen or hallway. It was always there looking at us. I even had to run most of the time there because I was fucking scared. Ruh-roh, Shaggy. That's not cool. I wonder if we can get one more done. Yeah, we can do this one. So this one is by U/the-coyote-kid with 2 D's. Dream Visitation. I was always incredibly close with my grandfather. He was a hero to me and took me in when I was about 14 years old. He taught me how to drive, how to shave, how to fish, basically everything a person needs to know to survive in this world. In the spring of 2016, his heart was failing. His health began to deteriorate. On a sunny Tuesday in May, his great big heart finally stopped. It was a good death, but it was hard on me. About a year after his death, I was working nights and spent most of my day asleep. One day, I woke up to my cell phone ringing. Being half asleep, I didn't bother to look at the screen to see who was calling. I just answered it. Hello? Cody, how are you? It was clearly my grandfather's voice. I'm fine, Grandpa, how are you? It was then that my mind finally caught up and I remembered that he was dead As soon as the thought entered my mind, the phone hung up. I quickly forced myself from semi to full consciousness, and I found myself holding my phone in my hand. The screen was on, and it was unlocked, and I opened my recent calls to see who, what, or if there was an incoming call. But there wasn't anything. I didn't know what to make of the situation. I know I heard his voice, and why would I be holding the phone? The rational me wanted to think that I was grief-stricken and that I manifested into subconsciousness actions of a phone call, but I also wanted to think that Grandpa was trying to reach out. A few weeks later, I looked up if others had spoken to their deceased loved ones through dreams or had phantom phone calls. I discovered that phantom calls are relatively rare, but when it happens while you're asleep, it's a dream visitation. I totally agree with that. Like, that's the easiest way for spirits to manifest, I have to tell you. That's how I saw my mom. I've seen my dad that way a couple times, but not as clearly as her. He doesn't talk. She has, and then she just smiles, but the theory is that when you are dreaming, it's easier for a spirit to pierce the veil and communicate. I know how true that is, but occasionally I will dream about grandfather. I always wake up hoping that he is still out there somewhere. Aw, that's so sweet. Fucking attic gnomes. Anywho's, we are at the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I had a wonderful time reading stories to you and then reading Reddit ghost stories. It's one of my favorite things. And I love these news stories. Like, some of them is just like, wah, wah. But tonight is like, I really agree with this guy. Like, visitations and dreams, totally real. Totally fucking happens. But thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, KPNL Radio, eTalk Radio, Twitter, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, wherever the frack in the Omniverse you may be listening tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. We have the Paradox Paranormal Forum coming up. So generally we have Mia, Robert White, me, I know we've been trying to have a certain fella on, but he's got some issues, some health issues. So we got Johnny Banani and Travis Willier Mustas. It's a very, very good time. And then on the 26th, which is Sunday, we have Mr. Troy Bacon on once more, and we may be talking about the orphanage in Africa. If you guys can afford it, they're really hungry right now. They're out of food. A lot of these kids aren't able to afford their schooling because they have no fucking money. Like, not for food, not for schooling, whatever. It's really hard everywhere, and I've been trying to tell my friend that. But yeah, I'm so grateful you guys are here. But don't forget, we are all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there's no us. If you'd like to join us on the Skype after party, please give me a little jingle jangle at, well, I actually got rid of my cell phone number. It used to be 970-335-9596. Go ahead and try it, see if it works. I don't know. But if not, give me a jingle jangle at tessa.n.thomas30@gmail.com. Let's see how that works. But until next time, nighty night, love and light to all my yous. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and look out for people that need help out there in the world. There's a lot of people these days. But as I said, nighty night, love and light. And I'll see you back here, same time, same crazy ass place.